Hello, and welcome to Curiosity Corner. Today we will be talking about the hardships of medieval winter and how we pushed through. Imagine facing 3 straight months of cold without heating, supermarkets, or modern medicine. For most people in the Middle Ages, that was reality. Winter was commonly counted from Martinmas in mid-November to Candlemas in early February. That long stretch marked a season of scarcity. Food stores ran low. Firewood became precious. Illness spread quickly in damp, smoky homes. Survival depended less on comfort and more on preparation. Today, winter can feel inconvenient. In the medieval world, it could be deadly. Let's explore how ordinary people prepared for and endured the harshest months of the year. Even now, the darker months affect our mood. Short days and long nights can feel draining. Medieval writers expressed similar emotions. Surviving poetry from England describes winter as a season of sorrow, when leaves fall, warmth disappears, and joy feels distant. But beyond the emotional toll, winter brought real danger. Cold weather weakened already vulnerable bodies. Respiratory illnesses spread easily in poorly ventilated homes. Malnutrition lowered resistance to disease. Death rates often rose during the winter months. For the wealthy, winter was uncomfortable. For the poor, it was a test of endurance. Clothing was the first line of defense. Most rural families produced their own garments. Wool was spun and woven into thick fabric that trapped warmth. Knitting was not yet common, so clothing was made from heavy woven cloth rather than the stretchy sweaters we know today. Underneath wool, people wore linen shifts. Linen could be washed more easily and was softer against the skin. Layers were crucial. Cloaks, hoods, caps, and mittens added protection. Those who could afford leather boots were fortunate. Many made do with simple footwear or went barefoot indoors. Homes themselves offered little insulation. Peasant houses were often small, with thatched roofs and walls sealed with clay. Gaps were stuffed with straw or rushes to block drafts. Floors might be covered with dried plants, which added slight insulation and improved the smell. In many households, animals were brought inside during winter. The heat from cows, sheep, or goats helped warm the living space. It was practical, even if it was far from pleasant. Fuel was another constant concern. Firewood had to be gathered, purchased, or granted by a local lord. In some areas, tenants were only allowed to collect fallen branches. A steady fire was essential not just for warmth, but for cooking and light. Winter survival depended on work done in autumn. Keeping livestock alive through winter was expensive because animals required stored hay and grain. Often, weaker animals were slaughtered in late autumn. Their meat was preserved with salt and smoked to last through the colder months. Salted beef, pork, or mutton would later be boiled for hours before being added to stews. The staple meal for many families was pottage, a thick soup made from grains, peas, beans, onions, and whatever else was available. It simmered in a pot over the fire and could be continually added to. Dairy products were also preserved with salt. Butter and cheese helped provide essential calories. Nuts, dried fruits, and stored grains supplemented the diet. If harvests had been poor, however, these supplies might not last. A bad year could turn winter from difficult to catastrophic. Medieval medicine was based on the theory of bodily humors. Winter was associated with cold and moisture, and physicians believed the body required warming foods to stay balanced. Rich, fatty meals were considered helpful in the cold months. People understood that winter weakened both animals and humans. They did not know about germs or viruses, but they recognized patterns. Illness was more common. Strength declined. The elderly and very young were especially vulnerable. Without antibiotics or modern treatments, even minor infections could become fatal. Winter did not mean idleness. Although outdoor agricultural labor slowed, there was plenty to do indoors. Clothing needed mending. Wool was spun and woven. Tools were repaired. Baskets and utensils were crafted. Leather goods were patched. Preparing for spring began long before the frost had lifted. Keeping busy was practical, but it also helped pass the long, dark evenings. Amid hardship, winter was not entirely bleak. The Christmas season offered relief from routine. Festivals provided food, drink, and a sense of community. In some places, local lords hosted meals for tenants. Religious celebrations emphasized charity and shared worship. Even modest feasts would have felt significant after weeks of rationed meals. These gatherings were more than indulgence. They reinforced social bonds and reminded communities that winter, however harsh, would eventually give way to spring. For medieval peasants, winter was a season of uncertainty. Survival depended on preparation, cooperation, and resilience. Food had to be preserved months in advance. Firewood carefully rationed. Clothing layered and repaired. Every decision made in autumn shaped the chances of making it to spring. Today, we experience winter as inconvenience or mood. In the Middle Ages, it was a season that tested the limits of endurance. And yet, year after year, most endured.